The coronavirus is spreading so quickly around the globe, it may only be a matter of time before it begins rolling across the U.S.
You can see police here now firing tear gas into the crowd.
The president doubling down on his unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud.
We have, how do you say it? Cucumber? Cucumber.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. I took a break from making videos, maybe a month and a half or so, kind of an extended vacation. In the meantime, a ton of you subscribed and liked my videos, and thank you so much for that. I am ready to kickstart 2021. I've got a lot of great ideas for the channel, but in the meantime, before we do any of that, let's end 2020 once and for all with my top 10 albums of 2020. For your listening pleasure, I also made a top 300 songs playlist. That is linked below in the description. But in the meantime, let's just stick with, for this video, the top 10 albums. Coming in at number 10 is the collaborative effort from Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats, Unlocked. This project almost didn't come together. Denzel and Kenny had been fighting over a beat that they made a long time ago that eventually another artist used, and I guess one of them didn't want that beat used, and there was a bit of a fight about it. They weren't speaking for months. Eventually they buried the hatchet and came up with this awesome collaborative album, and for that we should be eternally grateful. It's actually kind of a mini album, and it's a showcase of both of these artists' talents. Denzel is showing off his lyrical wit and dexterity, and Kenny is as versatile in his production as ever. These two work well together and it shows. Apparently they knocked the whole thing out in about 3 days, which is par for the course considering how they work individually. They're very prolific. The whole thing is fun. It's packed with great beats from Kenny and one-liners from Denzel. They wear their influences on their sleeves here. The whole thing sounds like it could be an underground Wu-Tang mixtape from the future, or something from someone signed to Stone's Throw. Denzel and Kenny may not always see eye to eye, but they're both at a creative force at their peak, and it would be a damn shame not to see future collabs from them in the future. Fingers crossed for Unlocked 2 sometime soon. Also, bonus points for boasting one of the best music videos of the year, which is basically a short film for the whole project. Up next at number 9, the Four UEP from India Jordan. One thing we've sadly had to live without this year has been the dance floor. Getting sweaty with a bunch of strangers in a packed, dimly lit room with loud thumping bass, sticky liquor-soaked floors, not a mask in sight. God, I miss it so much. India Jordan misses it too, and the 6-track EP they dropped this year gives us just a taste, just a sampling of that joy, and in a variety of styles they've dabbled with in their career, from house to techno to drum and bass to happy hardcore. The EP is also India's most personal project. It's a musical documentation of their experience of discovering their queer identity and finding joy and comfort with themselves in that discovery. The whole thing is a banger with a positive message, and that's two things I think we all needed in 2020. Coming in at number 8 is Taylor Swift with Folklore. Nowadays, it's not unusual for a big name artist to surprise drop a new album without warning, but the real surprise of Folklore was the content. This is not the Taylor Swift we thought we knew. In one fell swoop and with one gloriously gorgeous album, Taylor made the best summer project perfect for sweater weather. Seeking help from names like Bon Iver and The National's Aaron Dessner, Taylor dropped the pop star image for a more mature, indie folk and straight up cottagecore inspired album, but not without her trademark knack for infectious songwriting and the ability to craft a compelling narrative throughout her lyrics. This time around the story is not as autobiographical, but through third-person perspectives that evoke nostalgia and are incredibly introspective. It's all a pretty low-key affair sonically, but make no mistake, this was a bold career move from Taylor, and it paid off big time. Up next is number 7, and that is Suddenly by Caribou, aka the project from Dan Snaith, who's been turning electronic sounds on their head for over a decade now. Pretty much any relevant style you can think of has been given the Royal Caribou trademark treatment. This latest album, Suddenly, feels like a combination of all that hard work into one brilliant late career album, and also a very satisfying victory lap. That's not to say this is a retread. This is not a retread. There's some new sounds here too, from disco to Snaith playing with boom bap sounds, and you can feel the gradual progression into a possible pop crossover in the near future for Caribou, as this is his most accessible project yet. I discover something new to love every time I put this one on. Super high replay factor here. Okay, coming in at number 6 is HAIM with Women in Music Part 3. So if Taylor Swift made the successful pivot and Caribou did the successful victory lap, HAIM sisters gave us both. They took that 70s pop rock style that they've perfected in the past into wonderful 21st century indie pop, and they've given it a new life here, incorporating more personal lyrics and swagger that reminds me of 90s era Sheryl Crow, which is so good. There's less of a studio sheen here than on previous albums though. It's as if the group has taken their casual, laid-back delivery from their beloved live shows. Seriously, you have to see HAIM live. They're so fun. They've taken that and injected it directly into the veins of this album, embracing their imperfections and their songwriting quirks that were always just below the surface before. The album should be called Women Save Rock Music Part 3, because that's exactly what they've done here. Okay, we've reached the top 5, and at number 5 is I Let It In and It Took Everything by Loathe. Now, I'll be the first to admit I am no metalhead here, so learning all the subgenres tackled on this album was a bit of a learning curve for me, but I adore this album front to back. I mentioned in a previous video from this year that the way Loathe loves Deftones as much as I do made this one kind of a gateway drug into other styles, and let's just say that after repeat listens, this one definitely holds up. The Liverpool band show versatility and incredible range, jumping from heavy grooves to experimental sounds to straight up metalcore to ambient to shoegaze to grunge, all without sounding gimmicky or flashy. By the time you get to the finish line, it feels like they're just showing off. There's never a dull moment here, and for fans of heavy music of all kinds, there's something for everyone, while also pushing the boundaries of what metalcore could sound like in the future. Okay, longtime viewers of the channel will not be surprised here, but at number 4 is the 1975 with Notes on a Conditional Form. If you're not prepared for the spectacle, everything the 1975 does can feel exhausting. From Matty Healy's interviews, to the year-long album rollout, to the frantic genre hopping from single to single to single. As a huge, very biased fan of this band, I will admit not everything they do works all the time. And Notes on a Conditional Form, their longest album to date, is certainly no exception. But as with everything they do, you've got to admire their grandiosity, the ambition, the try-anything attitude. And this one has everything from a spoken word intro from Greta Thunberg about climate change, obviously, to the band's first stab at loud as hell rock and roll, to a song with Phoebe Bridgers, to a collab with Cuddy Ranks, to an attempt to channel modern jangle pop, to their trademark 80s kitschy keyboard sound that they do so well. As always, Matty's uber modern lyrics are at the forefront, tackling alienation, online relationships, and the bromance between him and his band. It's a lot, as usual, but as with anything with the 1975, it is well worth the journey. Number 3 also won't surprise anyone, especially if you've been looking at most year-end lists. Count me among the zeitgeist, but I really love Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple. I'm not sure what I could add here, actually. This album has been talked about to death at this point. It's on seemingly everyone's year-end lists, and for good reason. It's truly a masterpiece, a career high point from one of the most intriguing pop voices and songwriters of a generation. It's a statement on confinement, released during a global pandemic, dealing with issues like bullying and sexual assault, but not without losing a confident sense of wit and humor. It's an experimental album, playing with different elements of percussion and lyrics that read as off-the-cuff prose at times. Fiona even uses the walls of her house as percussion, and her dogs are listed in the album credits for providing background barking. The whole thing feels organic and adventurous and intimate and unpredictable in the most exciting way. Fiona Apple has been making acclaimed music for decades, but remarkably, this sounds like her most passionate and confident project to date. We didn't know she still had it in her, and yet we should have never even had an inkling of doubt. Okay, coming into the home stretch with number 2, Ohms by Deftones. You're not going to find me naysaying on any era of this band's catalog. I'm a very loyal fan all the way back to the Adrenaline days. Even their most lukewarmly received albums I thought were spectacular. So it's nice to see the critical consensus finally taking notice of the transitions the band were making in the 2010s, particularly with their albums Koi no Yokan and Gore. And once they had Terry Date back on production, I knew we were in for a good one. Call it a right place, right time thing. All the pieces of the puzzle fall into place here. Everything works for Deftones on this album in a way that hadn't previously happened before. All the songs that embody the signature sound of this band are here and they sound effortless. The quiet, loud dynamic that makes them so intriguing sounds refreshed on Ohms, simultaneously creating one of the band's heaviest and most sonically experimental efforts in a very, very, very long time. This album isn't going to convert any skeptics, but it rallies the troops, such as myself, while also introducing a new generation to heavy rock's most prominent elder statesmen. And finally, my favorite album of 2020, How I'm Feeling Now by Charli XCX. I know. Surprise, surprise, right? What's a pop star to do when she's trapped indoors during a global pandemic? Make an album, of course. Charli XCX's How I'm Feeling Now is a cohesive, endearing statement on love, but it's also a hyperpop banger, top to bottom, featuring production from Dylan Brady from 100 Gex and A.G. Cook. An absolutely cathartic experience for those of us who miss our friends, who can't wait to go out and dance again and see live music and get drunk at bars, who've only had the comfort of our pets and our significant other while everyone else has been within Zoom's reach. Charli utilized the modern conveniences of today, building the album via computer software and correspondence with her collaborators, which also included her fans. The entire process, from the videos to the demos to the lyrics, was documented on social media for the whole world to see. When I reviewed the album for this channel back in May, I said it was a product purely of its time, and that it would be remembered far after this strange era we're all living in. And I stand by that. Not only is How I'm Feeling Now a perfect capsule of what it's been like to live through a pandemic, it's also a snapshot of an emerging sound of pop music from one of the pioneers of that sound. Okay, that's it. Happy New Year. I hope your 2021 is awesome, or at the very least, tons better than the hellscape of a year that 2020 was. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you are so inclined. Also, drop me your top 10s for 2020 in the comments below. I want to see them. Come on, I know you made one. Everyone made one. Please join me in 2021. Like I said, I've got a ton of great stuff planned for the channel. I'm Ben, the Playlist Fiend, and thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.